Hey everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. We are going to be jamming with the team about purpose. I often get this question around, I don't feel like I'm living in my purpose. How do I find my purpose? What is my purpose? Feels like everyone else knows their purpose, but I don't know my purpose. And we're going to be diving in today, not only on identifying what our purpose is, but some of those telltale signs that help us be guided toward what our purpose is, how we know when we're living in alignment, and the truth is, well, we know when we're living out of alignment. So sit back, enjoy, and step into today's episode. And if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe on YouTube, Apple, we're on Spotify, and of course, Google Play. So enjoy. So I am so excited to have you guys on the podcast today because we're going to talk about purpose, right? Yeah, look at the jazz hands, double jazz hands. So if anyone who's listening is listening and they're like, oh, what's this jazz hands thing all about? Well, please come and watch the podcast over on YouTube because you'll see double jazz hands from Danielle and Jen here.
And we didn't plan that, so it's pretty good. That must mean we're spending a lot of time together.
I was going to say, and this is because they're attached at the hip. Oh my goodness. But yeah, that's our topic for today, is to be talking about purpose. For me, it's a spectrum, and I'm super curious for you guys. Like, the spectrum in my mind is like, everyone wants to know their purpose, right? So that's the umbrella. And it's like, how do we find our purpose? How does it feel when we're not living our purpose and maybe living out of alignment? And then how do we know that we are living our purpose, right? Because many times, like, life is can be at times when we're not awake to it, can feel like we're just on a hamster wheel. So I'm super curious to talk about all the things today when it comes to purpose, and even like defining, what does purpose mean? I think that's really important too.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I love you, Bailey, because you always have about 12 questions at once. Like, bam! I haven't had my coffee yet. Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, how do I even know that I'm aligned with my purpose? What does it mean to live in your purpose? Because it seems like so otherworldly, right? It's like this big, like, purpose. But I think it's like, I would say, would you agree? It's like a calling, right? It's a calling, or it means that, we're doing what we were meant to do, or
Right.
like created to do. That's sort of like the definition of purpose.
I mean, I could definitely chew on that one. Danny, what do you think?
I think for me, when I first heard purpose, I was like really scared. Like, I was like, oh my God, this is too much for me to handle. Like, I'm doing 100,000 other things. I have to go find the thing that I'm supposed to be doing in this life. And as I have done more like introspection and reflection and learning all of the things, because that is my natural tendency. Like, I'm scared by this thing. Now I'm going to go jump in and have to learn everything there is to learn about it. But it hit me about like 2 months into, like, when I took our LLCT program, that for me, my purpose is being exactly who I am. And it's more about like a being than it is about doing anything in particular, and just coming back to being who I'm supposed to be, which could look like, it's your career or your vocation, or just like how you show up in the world. And for me, it is more how I show up and open the door for anybody else who's coming in behind me to show up exactly as they are as well.
We make a good point. There is something about that when we show up fully as ourselves, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like it's in many ways an unintentional permission slip that you write for other people. I can think of, different instances when I was just like, you know what? There's no rules here. There's no right way to do it. Like, let's just go for it. Whether that was in business or in relationship, or frankly, like even in parenting, where I'm just like, let me just be the most me that I can be, even though like the most me is not
necessarily written and set in stone. I'm kind of figuring it out as I go along. And I think that you're right, Danielle, like it allows other people to kind of say, well, if she can do that, like, why can't I do that? Like, if you're being yourself, maybe I can be myself too. So I definitely, that resonates for me. How about you, Jen?
That so resonates with me because I am one who tends to compare myself to others. You know, I think we all can relate to that, right? I'll look at somebody else. And in fact, I listened to another podcast of yours, Bailey, recently, and I was like, wow, look at this. She has such amazing people on here. How am I ever going to do this? And I remember I was talking to my friend, I was talking to Danielle too about it. And she was like, just go and be yourself. Like, why do you have to worry about anything else? When you are yourself, you are living your purpose. You are, you know, it frees you up to just be, you know, so much more comfortable because you don't have to, you know, be that person that you think you need to be. You just be yourself. So what could be better than that when it comes to living your purpose? I think that is really like the first step to living your purpose, is just realizing that you can just be who you already are. You don't have to be anyone else.
Right. And who you are, I think, is going to change all the time. Like, we should be evolving. And in fact, one of the core texts, as you guys know, in our coach training program is the 4 agreements. And the 4th agreement is like, always do your best. And then, but then the fine print on that says like, and your best is going to change from moment to moment. Right. And I think like who you are is always evolving and changing moment to moment, whether it's like the hats that you wear, the roles that you do, or even like how you're feeling. It's always changing.
I heard this saying, it was a long time ago. It was when I was, you know, really young. And I was listening to something and it said, you know, God loves us exactly how we are, but he loves us too much to let us stay that way. And I think about that all the time because it's like, we can love ourselves exactly how we are and we can be just perfect how we are. But because we love ourselves so much and because, you know, we want to grow and evolve, like you said, Bailey, it's like we just need to keep going and becoming a new version of ourselves and really just accepting ourselves where we are each step of the way.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's like, and isn't that such an interesting paradigm? Daniel, what do you think? Because I see it as a paradigm. Yeah.
100% agree. And it's about like accepting yourself where you are and not judging where you might have been. So you may have an old habit that comes back that is not your favorite thing in the world, but like it's coming back for a reason. And it's something that you've probably overcome already. So there's something else to learn from that. And then Bailey, kind of playing off of what you said, like we all play so many different roles in our lives. We have our spiritual church going person. We have the side of us that is in our job. We have mom, friend, daughter, granddaughter, whatever roles that you're playing. And your purpose isn't just like one of them. It's just showing up in every single one of them as who you are. And is interesting because I was talking to my mom last night. She has the Coco. And about 2 years ago, she would have been in a very different place if she had gotten sick than she is today. And we had a long talk about how she has started meditating and she's like, sitting there getting her test, and rather than being overcome with anxiety and fear of what's to come, she was like, I wouldn't be in this place if I didn't watch you consistently show up for yourself and become more interested in doing that. She's like, I just would have, kept going on the way that I was going on and been living in a perpetual state of anxiety. So for me, it was like I didn't even realize that because I started doing that for myself, that my mom, it was like a just really quick ripple effect on her, and she's showing up in a different way for herself as well. And I think that's the power of showing up in your purpose and owning exactly who you are.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I love that because you're right. It's a trickle effect. It could be an inspiration. It's not a requirement of everyone around us to change if they see us evolving, right? And when we live our truth, we can inspire others. What I'm also curious is like, do you guys think that our purpose changes? Like that it changes in our different life stages, or does it change according to the different roles or hats that we wear? does it change according to our experiences? Or do you think that there's an umbrella of like, this is your purpose, and then it's demonstrated in different ways? I'm just curious.
Well, I think you're right. I think it does change. And like, I'm thinking about my life and when I first, started out, and I think of purpose. Sometimes we think of what we do. Like Danielle said, she thinks about it more of who she is, and that's great. But I also think it's like what we're put here to do. And I think when I was saying high school and nobody knew what they wanted to do with their lives, right? And I remember hearing about court reporting, and I immediately knew that that was going to be my career. Like I knew it. I had this knowing that was just so powerful. I was just like, there was nothing that was going to stop me from doing that. And it was hard, it was a journey. Wasn't so easy just because what, like, was it my purpose? I mean, I was put here, I guess I was, right, to be this court reporter person. But like then as I was going through and putting all the things into what I had to do to get to be a court reporter, it was hard. It was a challenge. It was like every day was a struggle. And becoming a court reporter, and then fast forward all these years later, I get invited to a retreat. I meet Bailey, and we meet at a coffee shop, and then things led us together. We kept running into each other, and all these other things happened with Bailey and coaching. And I went to Puerto Rico on a women's retreat, and I fell in love with coaching. And I started, and I was always into self-development. So it was like my purpose was, changing. I was starting to see like, well, maybe there's something else out there for me. I love court reporting. I still do it, but I was intrigued by becoming a coach myself, but I didn't feel like I was ready. And I remember Bailey asking me would I like to join the coach training, which was like, I had never really thought about doing anything else other than court reporting. And when I was asked that question, it just kept haunting me. It was like, it was chasing me. It wouldn't leave me alone. And I just said, I can't, first of all, I don't think I can ever say no to Bailey ever about anything. that's just like,
I have good
I've
ideas.
come to terms with that. Yeah. She's just like, whatever she says, I'm like, yes.
I would say no, Jen.
So saying yes to that was like a big thing for me, because I thought I was living my purpose being a court reporter, and now things were starting to change. And so I think it is like a process and evolving and becoming, I think it changes. I don't think it's like one thing and it's like one umbrella. I think it's, where life leads you. And I think it's, realizing that, we are on this journey and we don't know, like, that's the fun thing. We don't know where life is going to lead us and like what we're going to be called to do or when we're going to be called to do it. And so it's exciting if you think about it like that. So
Yeah,
our purpose is always changing.
I love that.
I love that you said that. And the first thing that popped into my head was the line from Shrek where he's talking about being like an onion and having a lot of layers, right? And as we keep diving deeper into each one of those layers, you are becoming somebody else in a different way. So I think your purpose does change as you evolve, and it's going to show up in a different way in your life because you're becoming another version of yourself, like you said, Jen.
Yeah. One thing that you had mentioned, and I'm curious, like, I want to highlight it, is the knowing. You said that, okay, I found out about court reporting in high school, which in high school, I feel like they give you the Chinese menu of options of like all the careers that you could possibly be. And meanwhile, you're just trying to figure out like what to wear for the party on Friday. Wait, I have to do both of these things at the same time? Get the perfect shirt and figure out what I'm going to be when I grow up? But you said the knowing, like you heard about that and they were just like a knowing, like, I don't know how I know that, but yep, that's the direction that I'm headed in. So I'm curious, like, does your knowing have a voice? Does it have a feeling? Is it like an alignment? Is it like all the stars align and everything is pointing in that direction? You just, see pennies, the number 2. I mean, like, what is it that's like, the embodiment of each of your knowing?
That's a great question. I wish I could really articulate an answer, but I do feel like it's like this innate just feeling that you just know. It's like there's no question. I didn't have a question, but I know a lot of my friends, they didn't know what they wanted to do. You know, like you said, they were worried about what they were going to wear on Friday night. And a lot of them just went to college. They didn't have a major. They didn't know what they wanted to do, you know, in their lives. But I just had this certainty that this was what I was going to do. Now, I don't always have that certainty. And I didn't really, when it came to coaching, I was very resistant. I did not jump into that. I didn't have that knowing necessarily, but I knew that it was intriguing and it was exciting and it was scary and it was all the things all at the same time. So I thought, well, maybe this is something that I need to listen to. I feel like there is like that. There's something inside of you that just doesn't let you rest until you say yes.
I believe that. I absolutely believe that, where it's just, it keeps showing up and you're like, well, a million other things could be showing up, but this one thing keeps showing up. Like maybe that's a door I have to walk through. And I also think that there's a difference between like that. And I talk about this a lot, like the knowing voice versus like our anxiety voice, right? The worry versus the intuition. So what does it look like and feel like for you, Danielle?
I think it depends on where I'm at in my life and how far I've gotten away from myself. Because sometimes I think it's been more of like a whisper that's like a little bit of like a, hey, I don't know, you might like this thing over here. And then other times it's like, you know, you're on the side of the road sobbing in tears and you're like, how did I get to this point in my life? And what do I need to do to get back to where I was, and where this might have just been a whisper that I should have listened to instead of just like, no, I'll try it like later down the road, maybe. So for me, I think it kind of has shown up a little bit differently throughout my life. And I was one of those people in high school I was not worried about what I was wearing, because like that is not something that is ever even crosses my mind. But I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I just knew that I liked bringing people together. I was a great party planner. I was always at the core of our friend group, bringing people together. And like my softball teams, I was always like the, you know, biggest cheerleader on the squad, even though I was not a cheerleader. So I think kind of, and if I look back in my life, I played that role in pretty much every aspect of my life. So I know that like that is, no matter where I go or what my vocation is, I'm always going to be the person that brings people together and lifts everybody up. And I feel like there's such a security and this like huge safety blanket that's like this big bear hug from the universe that's like, you just hold that. Like, even if you don't know where you're going, like, you know, that's what you're supposed to do.
Right. Well, how did you know that you wanted to be a coach?
It was a whisper and a whisper and a whisper until I ended up crying on the side of the road. And I was like, I need to do more. I have bigger shoes to fill. I've been playing small and playing it safe in my life. And I just wanted to help impact the world in a bigger way.
Yeah. Well, that playing it small thing, that's something that can like show itself to us. And that could be one that's hard to answer, but it's almost like if you don't answer it, where you're at right now, which might be comfortable, can eventually become painful, right? But how often do we do that in so many different areas of our life? We're just shrinking ourselves or playing small or not playing full out.
Yeah, I think it's there's a lot of reasons why I think like people are not saying yes to things, because I feel like we're all of us, I think, you know, struggle with this when we are we feel that calling or that like nudge or that whisper. We are afraid to fail. Like we just have that like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. Like this is too out of the box for me. Like, but like the thing about failure is that we really can't fail. Like when we were in school, we would get like the, you know, the A or the C or the D, you know, we could get the F, and it was, you know, it was devastating for us. But now as adults, we really can't fail. We can have an outcome that we want to accomplish, like say, you know, I want to do this. And if we don't meet that objective, it's not failing. It's just like information, right? It's just like information, like what worked, what didn't work. And like, so that's why I think a lot of people are not jumping on board to do and to live their purpose, because they're like, I might fail at it. I might stink at it. I might not be good enough.
Yeah.
And it is so, what I would like to say to anyone who's listening that is struggling with that, like they want to take a step to do something that they love, or like that lights them up,
Right.
makes their heart sing, you know. And then they're just like, you know, I wouldn't be good at it. And that's how I felt when I was asked to be a coach. You know, when I was asked to join the LLCT Life Leadership Coach Training, I was like, oh no, like I liked being coach. I like self-development. I am that cheerleader for my friends and family, and people come to me for things, but I just, no, that's just not for me, you know? And so I was afraid. My fear was holding me back from saying yes. So I think that that is something that does hold us back.
Yeah. I mean, wow, Jen, that's a really great point, because when we have a narrative that we might fail, even though our soul's called to it, or like it's Danielle saying, like that's that whisper, a lot of times we won't answer it because and what's the barrier? Barrier is like, what if I try and I fail, right? So I'll just stay where I am or stay with what I'm doing. And it's interesting because I remember for myself, well, I'll back the train up to, like you said, but like back in high school and even just different parts of my life, I was always drawn to people, always drawn to people. It didn't matter if I was a little kid, you know, high school, and I was always drawn to helping people in some capacity or another. And I didn't know why. I just love people. And, so when I went to college, like I went for business, and then eventually it shifted into social work. I eventually became a psychotherapist. As we all know my story. I've shared that with you guys before, but I remember first finding out about coaching, and I was like, well, that's a bunch of garbage. Like coaching? No. You want to help people, you need to be a therapist. That's what you need to do. And I've shared that with you guys before, but it's so interesting how, you know, now as you're sharing your stories, like the whisper that you get, or even like the crying on the side of the road of like, what am I doing with my life? I remember like everything that I built and being in hysterical tears because I thought I had arrived at like everything that I thought that I wanted. And I was like, this isn't it. I was like, well, shit. If this isn't it, like what is, right? And that coaching thing popped up again. And I was like, oh God, this stuff, this snake oil. Like I was like the worst shit talker. I know, headphones for everybody. It was got kids around, but like I was the worst. I was like, coaching this garbage. I mean, and then it was just like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I had no idea how to do it. I mean, yes, I did a semester of college in business classes. That was it. That and a lemonade stand. Like that's what we were working with, starting this entire company almost 10 years ago. And it was just like, but it came to this point that it was more uncomfortable not to move forward, even though moving forward was completely unknown and an uncharted territory. At that time, I didn't have any mentors. I didn't even know how to ask for a mentor because I didn't even know what in the hell I was actually doing or creating. I was just like, well, here goes nothing. And definitely here goes nothing because I don't know what I'm creating. But it was that point for me, like a tipping point of sorts, that I'm able to see now. Now I couldn't see it then, but now looking back, I was just like, oh, it was too painful for me to stay small. And for me to do this thing that I didn't know how to do. It was just like, I had to do it. I had to.
And I'm
it's
sure there were so many learning curves, right? Like so many learning curves. And so many
yeah.
times when you felt like, am I doing the right thing? Like that is something that I think
Mhm.
when we're living our purpose, just
Right.
because we know it's our purpose doesn't mean it's going to feel like rainbows and daisies and butterflies, like all good. I found my purpose. Now it's easy.
Mhm.
No, it's like every day. I don't know about you guys, but I question, am I doing the right thing? Like, is this
Yeah.
right for me? It's like, then there's a sign or there's something that tells me, yes, you're on the right path. Keep going. I think that all these things like are just normal things that pop up, even for life coaches who do the work on, we do the work on ourselves each and every day. Like we're in the work, but we still struggle. Like that's what I think is so important for people that realize that like just because you're struggling doesn't mean it's not your purpose. Doesn't
Right.
mean you give up or you stop. It just means you keep going.
Right.
And yeah, like I wonder like what it is, like how do you know when things aren't going like 100% your way? Like how do you know, should I keep going or is this maybe not my purpose? Like that's a good point. But I think that there's just like that drive that keeps us going. What do you
Right.
think about that, Ben or Danielle?
I mean, I'll jump in, Dan, but I want to hear from you too, is like, I hear what you're saying. And as you're talking about it, like going the route of becoming a coach and starting my own business was hard and it was unknown. But when I would question myself and ask, is there anything else that I want to be doing? I was like, nope, this is exactly what I want to do. So like, I knew it was my purpose. And there were times when I can't say that I wanted to give up per se. I probably did. I probably was just like, is this even what I'm supposed to be doing? But again, it was just like, well, like, and there's a lot of other options. I mean, there are for all of us that there are lots of different options of things that we could do. But there was a knowing. So going back to that knowing. Now, on the other side, as I've shared with you guys, and we'll just share it publicly right now, but I've been navigating a divorce. And I've found for me in that was that there was, and it's been years in the making, like, no one gets divorced overnight. Like relationships don't end overnight. We all know that, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship. But you said, Jen, you said like that it's like that you wanted to like give up, or you were pointed in a direction, you're like, this isn't the direction for me anymore. And for me, like I got a lot of signs that this isn't the direction for me anymore, but my tenacity, I don't give up on anything, like that kept overriding this knowing that I was having, that this relationship had come to the end of its contract or agreement. I believe that we have agreements with one another. So I think that that's also very interesting, is like, I tend to, and it's just me and how I'm wired, I tend to have this like Goonies never say die thing about me, where I just will go full out. And sometimes like way past, like I remember even running a 5K and I was like cruising and I ran way past the finish line and I like kept running. And then like I hear in the background, I think it was like my mom and like my sisters, and they were like, stop running. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, stop running. So I would be curious to get your take on that too, is like listening to that knowing, because sometimes that knowing is like, this is hard, but keep going because this is what you're supposed to do. And sometimes that knowing is like, hey, this is not for you. Like this chapter is over, which is hard. I find it's like, it's hard to do that hard thing too. It's hard to start new things and it's hard to end things that very familiar. So I'm just curious for your take on that. Like, how do you know when to push through, and how do you know like when to tap out?
I think for me, I'm like a very analytical person. So I have to just like get it out on paper. Like, here's the pros and cons of each of my options. And then actually ask myself, like, am I questioning this from a place of fear? Like, where is this
Right.
question coming from? Is it really that like I don't have trust in myself? Like, is it really that I'm just not interested in it and it's not speaking to me? Or is it because I'm not trusting myself or the universe that like universe is going to have your back no matter what, and you're going to have your back no matter what. And with like the types of people that we are, but this is most people in the world, you have friends. Like you guys have a lot of friends. If you needed to crash on their couch for like 1 week of the month, you could probably get through a whole year just doing 1 week a month at a friend's house. So like, you're going to be fine. No matter what, you're probably going to be fine. Truthfully, like
I
really
love it. Danielle's backup plan is couch surfing. If this whole coach thing doesn't work out.
it's all good. I know I have a place with you in the Carolinas, Bailey.
Yes.
I know wherever Jen ends up, I will have a place with her as well.
Oh my God, I
So,
love it.
like it's okay. It's okay to make that leap, right? But
Right.
I don't plan on ever having to tap on everybody's shoulder and knock on their door and say, "Can I sleep on your couch?" Because my back probably would not have that.
I mean, are you any good at making pancakes?
Oh, great! I'm a great
come
cook.
on in.
Great cook. But yeah, I feel like for me, it's not always that there is an intuition, but if I'm not always as tuned into it as I have to be, like get it out on paper, ask yourself the questions, understand where that fear is coming from. And I know the way it showed up in my life before is that like I have had a hard time letting go of the identity that I've built around something. Like I had a hard time letting go of I'm a corporate badass identity because I spent a lot of time, money, effort, making the dean's list every semester in college, graduating number 3 in the business school. Like I put a lot into becoming a corporate badass. So letting go of that identity that I had built for myself was really hard for me.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Yeah, that was probably what I did struggle with. And stepping away from being a therapist and going full into coaching was because I had done the same thing. Like I had excelled in all my classes and graduated and then did my postmaster's work. And, you're climbing the career ladder and the education ladder. Like you do all those things and like, da-da-da-da-da, this is my identity. And it's just like, but I want this over here. And that identity shift, even in relationship, and knowing yourself, like, my identity was as Bobby's wife, and he's a wonderful person. I know people always feel sticky about talking about the ending of relationships, but I'm like, well, guys, we're on my podcast. We'll talk about all the things. And he's a wonderful person. And to your point, it's like you can make a pros and cons list, and sometimes you just have this inner knowing. And yeah, it's interesting to develop that element of your relationship with yourself, of not only intuition, but I think that when we do challenging things or hard things or say yes or say no, we get to know ourselves better. Not easy, but it's I don't know, for school reference, it's a course that we need to take.
Yeah, and it's a course that I think we need to take earlier in our lives at this point. I feel like everyone I know that gets there, it's way later in their life. And it's probably something that happens over the course of our lives as we go through, growing up and learning what society's rules are. And we get all the comparison and I should be more like them and idolizing the, superstars that are out there instead of idolizing some ways ourselves and really getting to learn and understand ourselves at an earlier age.
Right. But even what like Jen was saying before about like, we're as adults, like we can't fail now, right? It's just like taking in information and things that we're learning. And to your point, Danielle, like someone's going to let you sleep on their couch, like if all else fails, which is just, making the case for taking risks. But it's interesting because then when you think about it, Jen, like, going back to that example about being in school, like we are teaching kids like that it's get it right or get it wrong. And what would it look like for us to teach them to know themselves and to take more risks? Right? Like what if we taught them early on that you can't actually fail? That even that if you got an F on a test, it's information, and the information is like you need to study more. The information is like turning fractions into ratios just isn't your jam, or like whatever it is. Like what if we started to just impart that knowledge, to your point, Danielle, that everybody seems to awaken to later on in life. Like, what would it look like to try and offer that to them at a younger age? Like for you,
Yeah.
Jen,
I
what
think-
would you, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, I think that there's just so many things that hold us back from living our
Mhm.
purpose. And like that fear of failure is one of them. Not being comfortable with ourselves is another one, you know, believing that we're not worthy or we have to do things perfectly, or the not wanting to feel all the feelings, because feelings are just, right? I love this thought. Like, if we're willing to feel any emotion, like, what would we do?
Mm.
That, like, to me is just like mind blown, because if we're not scared to feel our emotions, like, we would probably do whatever we really desire, but we hold ourselves back, you know? So it's not always an easy road, but like saying yes to ourselves, saying yes to what lights us up, to what, like Bailey always used to, I always remember Bailey saying, like, what will make you want to jump out of bed in the morning? That's what our purpose is.
Right.
Like, find that thing that we love. Deepak Chopra said, he said, explore all the things that make your heart sing and enable you to make a life, not just a living, not just a living. So like, if you can do that thing that you love, like, you will not, well, they say this, and I don't know if it's true, but like, you will not work a day in your life if you do what you love.
100%.
However, I don't know if that's like BS, because sometimes I'm like, I'm so tired. Like, but you know, it's true in a sense, right? When you love
Right.
what you do, it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like you're living your life in a flow that's just like, feels
Right.
good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think Jen, to that point that you're spurring this thought of me, that when I thought of purpose, I thought like I had to go out there to find it. I was like, I'm looking everywhere, far and wide. I'm looking in 100 books, like, where is my purpose? Where am I going to find it? And it's like, oh my God, did it hit me when I realized that you have to go in here and into yourself.
Right. Oh my God. Yes. 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 Yes.
That, like, can be just as scary, but it's a lot easier at the end of the day than trying to, you know, spend the rest of your life running around outside of yourself trying to find your purpose.
Right. Well, that's one of the reasons why I love the Own Your Power Mastery program, is we spend so much time like trying to find the right podcast, trying to find the right book, trying to find the right like guru, the thing, da, 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 da. And that program is like designed for you to go inside here, clean out the cobwebs, see, I mean, you guys know, because you coach the program, but like, see what's not working and then figure out like who you are and what you want. But you're right. Like, when we're just out here at all the satellites, we're not in here, right? And sometimes it's almost like easier for us to be out here, because this place is unknown and can be scary.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh my God, love it.
And this place, when we realize, when we understand, and when we, you know, if I'm speaking to anyone today, it's like, I want to just help you to see that you are 100% worthy, 100%. You know, your worth is absolute. You know, you're 100% lovable, and you deserve to live the life that you want. And I think that was something that I needed to hear. I had no idea. Like, I had no idea that I could create it for myself. Like, I didn't know that I was, which is going through Own Your Power, reading the book, you know, 100 times and doing all the work and the exercises. Like, I realized that, like, it wasn't something out there, like Danielle said. It was something that I needed to cultivate inside and really come to terms with, like, this is my life, and I get to, you know, get in the driver's seat, as Bailey always says, you know. And that was such a freeing thing for me to like say yes to my purpose and to, you know, expand, right, beyond, you know, what I was doing before. And like, not that there's ever a point where we arrive, you know, like, we're always, like you said before, we're always evolving and growing and learning new things and becoming more. And, you know, hopefully if we're on that path, but it's like, what's preventing us from getting on that path?
Right.
Like, are we on that path? Like, let's stay on it, go forward, because we do have one life, you know. Like, I love that that, what is it, that poem from
Mary Oliver. Yep. Mhm.
One wild and precious life. What are we doing with it? Let's,
Yeah.
let's do big things. Let's
love
live
it.
our purpose.
So good jamming with you guys today. And obviously, just like every other episode, I feel like we could talk for hours. So we'll have to have you guys back on. Da, 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 da. Awesome. So thank you guys for being on the podcast today. Jen and Danielle have been amazing, and they continue to support so many people in the world and inspire them to live their best life and to go within to find out who you are and who you truly are meant to be in this world. So catch us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, if you want to see our jazz hands and our fun little outfits, and the best shirt that I found at Target. And then Google Play as well. So thank you guys.
Thanks,
Thank
Allie.
you, Valley.
Bye.